giant explosions, a businessman just standing by the ocean, and here's my face after trying to dissect it all. Yes, episode 5 of Westworld is here, and we're gonna take a deep dive into some explosive new theories like who Caleb really is, Sirach's second mole, and why Dolores really needs Bernard. So strap yourselves in because here we go. We begin in the outskirts of Paris in the year 2025. We know this from previous trailers. A young Sirach has lost his entire family in a nuclear blast, everyone except for his genius brother, Jean-Mi. We see his brother bleeding from his nose, a result of the high levels of radiation from the blast. Later in the episode, Sirach will tell Dempsey Sr. that it was the anti-radiation pills he and his brother took that gave him the idea that people can be edited.
It's possible to edit people.
With images of climate change, riots, and social unrest, Sirach and his brother sought to create order out of chaos, to create a god that would become known as Rehoboam. We see the Rehoboam circle, which has been a common image this season. It features heavily in this episode. Sirach later mentions that the creation of Rehoboam was like the sun and moon aligning, which is exactly what an eclipse is. We'll also see in this episode many variations of this eclipse, like the full circle on Sirach's watch, the partially full one in his re-education facility, and the black over white circle in the flashbacks. Sirach having this circle as a watch indicates that it's tracking something, only this watch doesn't track time. In fact, after he kills Dempsey Sr. at the end of the episode, one of the first things he does is look at his watch to see if it's changed. He also looks at his watch when he learns that Dolores stole his info. This watch seems to be an indicator of Rehoboam's stability, and after the Dolores incident, we see black has completely overtaken the left side of the circle, indicating several anomalies and changes to the course Sirach has plotted out. Sirach mentions that the problem with Rehoboam is that sometimes flies get stuck in the ointment. Flies like the one the president of Brazil here tries to swat away, or the ones that Sirach later calls anomalies which need to be re-educated. Flies like Caleb, but we'll get into that in a bit. Sirach's able to use the immense predictive power of Rehoboam to sway world leaders and build a world that will hopefully prevent another nuclear blast like the one that killed his family. We see here an example of these access files before flashing back to Sirach's development of Rehoboam with his brother. We'll later find out these are the memories Dolores has watched when she was able to gather Sirach's foundational cognitive history, basically all the data past, present, and future Rehoboam gathers to create one's profile. Sirach and Jean have teamed up with Dempsey Sr., Liam's father, since he, being the owner of Insight, which holds the entirety of the world's data, has immense wealth to pay for their venture. We even see little Liam over here. Dempsey isn't too pleased with how the project is going. They've already gone through 3 failed iterations, Saul, David, and Solomon, all 3 of which are named after kings of Israel. With their funding on the chopping block, Jean suggests they kill Dempsey. He doesn't understand the gravity of what they're trying to do. Sirach pushes back on this, but we'll learn that sometimes fate has a way of guiding your hand. Back in present day, Sirach flies through the air on his private jet. We aren't exactly sure why he's always flying around, but it could be to make it more difficult for him to be tracked. One of Sirach's henchmen, Sebastian, informs him about the altercation last episode at the Yakuza distillery, and that Rehoboam was able to trace 5 encrypted devices in Jakarta, Berlin, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Jakarta likely being Musashi, San Francisco Charlotte, and Los Angeles Dolores, Martin, and Bernard. But that leaves Berlin. Why is Rehoboam picking up one of these encrypted connections in a place the series hasn't even mentioned? Remember that Dolores left Westworld with 5 pearls. We currently know who 4 out of these 5 are: Musashi, Charlotte, Martin, and Bernard, leaving it quite likely that our mystery 5th host is in Berlin. Perhaps that's where Caleb and Dolores are headed to in their fancy new jet. Dolores, Caleb, and Liam are on the run, knowing Sirach's men will be after them at any moment. Dolores needs Liam in order to gain access to Rehoboam. The most important part of this scene, however, is when Dolores gives Liam these glasses, which allows him to see other people's profiles. Of course, Dolores's comes up blank, but when he sees Caleb, a man who believes Liam responsible for killing his best friend, he says,
You think I killed your friend?
If you match this up with Liam's dying words where he tells Caleb, you did it, it's heavily implied that Caleb was the one who killed his friend, and that through his re-education programming had his memory replaced.
It's possible to edit people.
We'll later see Caleb tied up in this white building wearing these glasses. In the episode 6 preview, fast forward about 20 seconds if you don't want to hear this, we see William wearing similar goggles in a similar room. We know he's in one of these re-education facilities. The theory here is that Caleb's memory has been changed via one of these facilities, and it would explain why his own mother has said on multiple occasions that he's not her son. Liam attempts to escape by drugging Caleb with the narcotic his friend Roderick gave him last episode, a narcotic which affects the limbic system, making you experience 5 different genres. Genre just so happens to be the title of this episode. Dolores calls for her modern-day version of a Westworld horse, this motorcycle, one that delivers a duffel bag of guns and which she's rigged with explosives for later use. The 3 of them run from Sirach's men while Caleb experiences his first trip, black and white. The ride is being tracked, and the only way to get off-grid is if Liam gives them his biometric key so Dolores can erase them from the system. Surrounded and under fire, Liam gives them the key so they can escape, transitioning Caleb into the second genre, a war movie with Ride of the Valkyries playing reminiscent of Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Caleb unleashes his inner soldier by firing this big-ass rocket launcher which, when it misses, uses its drone capability to accurately hit its target. They stop the car, and Dolores uses her motorcycle to explode more of Sirach's men. All this happening while Caleb experiences his most hilarious trip. The theme from Love Story plays as he stares at Dolores. Giggles and Ash, who we saw from episode 1, come for some much-needed backup, as Dolores has hired them using the Rico app. They both make some interesting references here you wouldn't expect from some petty street criminals, like calling Liam Little Lord Fauntleroy, which is from a 19th century novel about a young boy who becomes an aristocrat, or references to King Midas and Tom Canty, the latter being the titular character of Charles Dickens's The Prince and the Pauper. This goes to show that these guys are pretty smart. It's not their lack of brains that have forced them to live a life of crime, it's the system. In order not to be tracked, the gang needs to keep moving, so they head down to the subway. Liam informs Dolores that her plan will never work. She can't be in 2 places at once. Little does he know we have multiple Doloreses. Dolores tells Martin, who is with Bernard after he was captured last episode, to make sure Bernard is protected and to give her access to Sirach's files. Now, we still don't know the importance of Bernard and why Dolores needs him around even though he wants to stop her. It's most likely that Bernard has something both Dolores and Sirach need. He may be that key that contains access to the deeper part of Rehoboam. Martin tells Bernard that everyone in this world is in their own loop, just like how all the hosts in Westworld were in their own, and as he talks about Bernard being of 2 minds, another hint he's part host, part human, we get this great accompanying shot of their reflections. But what I find interesting here is how Bernard questions Martin, asking him if he's ever questioned what Dolores is making him do. This leads me to believe that one of those Dolores clones will eventually go against Dolores and make decisions for him or herself, and that frontrunner I think will be Charlotte. Dolores receives Sirach's history while Caleb experiences this psychedelic 70s trip backed by Iggy Pop's nightclubbing. In another flashback, we learn more about the creation of Rehoboam, starting with how the Sirach brothers were able to convince Dempsey to go all in by being able to predict the stock market. In 1 week, they were able to achieve a 2,000% return on investment on $5 million, which is a cool $100 million. Not too bad for 1 week's worth of work. Everything seemed to be going well for the Sirach brothers and their plan until they hit a problem. Every projection they came across, the world became unglued. They would find that certain people, outliers and agitators they couldn't control or account for, were messing up their projections. In fact, Sirach's brother happened to be one such person. Back in present day, Dolores gives the go-ahead to Martin to deliver everyone's profiles to set them free of their loop. What's supposed to be a freeing act is pretty depressing. Ash finds out her brother will die a violent death, this guy will die of a drug overdose, and this woman's daughter will commit suicide. It's no wonder why we see people rioting and this man likely drowning himself by the beach. It's such a destabilizing thing that will likely ripple for episodes to come. Perhaps this is why Charlotte acquired 300 riot transformers a few episodes ago. There's also something oddly satisfying about this group leaving a train to venture into a new world, just like how guests at Westworld would. Above ground, amidst rioting and general pandemonium, Caleb is almost shot by Sirach's men but is saved by Dolores. I think it's safe to say that he knows Dolores isn't human anymore. In another flashback, Dempsey visits one of Sirach's Serac remote facilities where several people are housed within these transparent rooms which look oddly like those used to house the hosts when they need to be repaired. These prisoners are what Serac referred to as the outliers and agitators, the ones which were messing up the system. This is a re-education facility where Serac has attempted to change them in order to fit the system. Some are even sent off to war to be killed. As we'll find out in the next scene, William is in one such re-education facility, one where Bernard is told to go to by Martin. It seems Dolores wants William and Bernard to meet. After all, she was the one who put William in this facility in the first place. She must have known this facility was owned by Serac. Stubbs arrives to save the day, coincidentally at the same exact time as Serac's men, which leads me to believe he is one of Serac's moles. Back in episode 3, Charlotte discovered that a mole in Delos was responsible for smuggling out Maeve. It makes perfect sense this person was Stubbs.
You don't think that you're the only person under my control?
Martin is surrounded by Serac's men, including Martel, who we've seen in previous episodes. He detonates a bomb, killing everyone around him, basically confirming that Serac is human since we see him react to the explosion when his hologram disintegrates in his jet. And bonus points if you recognize this chilling intro song from Kubrick's The Shining playing before the beach scene. Like The Shining, where one man goes gradually insane, it looks like the same is happening with the world. The group doesn't need Liam anymore, and Caleb begins to experience the final act of his trip, one that gives him flashbacks of his friend's death and this mysterious hooded man. Could Caleb have been programmed in one of Serac's re-education facilities to take out high-profile targets like this dude? Did he have his memory wiped? Was Caleb used like a pawn and is now being used like one again, only this time by Dolores? Ash ends up shooting Liam and, well, it leaves Caleb with a lot to think about.
Who does he think I am? Who does he think I am?
Fun fact, before our final flashback, we see Serac using an AZERTY keyboard, which is used in France. In this flashback, we learn that Rehoboam has found an agitator who will, quote, destroy the world. It's anyone's guess as to who this could be at the moment. Dolores, Caleb, Bernard, William are all possibilities. We see an explosion in the distance, which we'll later find is Dempsey's private jet, which Serac will use to stage Dempsey's death. Both Dempsey and Serac have used Rehoboam and know this moment won't end with Serac killing Dempsey. At least that's what Dempsey thinks. Serac explains that Rehoboam has these little white spaces where randomness interacts with life to create a truly free space where you can make a choice. Notice here more circle symbolism amongst the wreckage. One such free space is right here in this moment of time. Serac murders Dempsey, leaving him the only person with full control over Rehoboam. And here we have our first showdown between Serac and Dolores. He's here in hologram form, and it's no coincidence that she circles him. She ends up walking right through him, and it's clear that he's pissed. Things aren't going the way he's planned. Caleb picks up a mysterious duffel bag, but it seems to be dropped off by someone who's using Rico, so it's likely a weapon, perhaps even a sniper rifle or some other gadget. Notice how we get this shot of his hands still covered in blood, alluding to the blood on his hands not only of Liam's, but of his former friend. The episode ends with Liam questioning what Dolores has done. Maybe not everyone wants to know their own fate, but at the end of the day, Caleb did. He is, like Dolores, an anomaly. The question is he that anomaly that will destroy the world? Thanks for watching, everyone. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and check out my other Westworld videos. I also want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. You can also follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.